And the country's in the very best of hands. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be, listening to the Irv Homer Show. It is Monday, January the 26th, and the end of the month is rapidly approaching. We do this program Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 o'clock on Eastern Standard Time right now. And I hope you enjoy it and I hope you learn things. Speaking of learning things, I constantly receive emails like, I heard you a few years ago say something about something about something about something. One of the reasons that I pride myself in listening over the years and doing talk radio, folks, is to learn something that I didn't know. Not for entertainment, not to have company in the house, not to have company in the car, but to learn and write down over the years information that has come across various and sundry talk programs that eventually may be of value to me. For example, an email that I received, and this is only typical of one of the hundreds of emails that I received. I heard you talk about banks and the Reserve Bank and how much money a bank should have. Could you enlighten me and call me and tell me what you were talking about 15 years ago, 20 years ago? The answer is no, I will not call you. When I first heard about 35, 40 years ago about a company called Veribank, VERI-BANK, and what they did, I was listening to the late Ed Harvey on WCAU radio, and I said, this sounds good to me. I stopped my car. I wrote down what Veribank was. Now, Veribank stands for Verifying Banks. It is a company, private company, that monitors the financial condition of banks all over the world. And if you subscribe to them with an annual fee, I think at that time was $125 a year, you could get the report monthly on 10 banks. Or question them on the condition of your bank, and they would charge you $35. And what they did is have a means of red, yellow, and green. If the bank had a viable reserve, which they notified you of, it was in green. If it was questionable, it was in yellow. If the bank didn't have a reserve that they felt comfortable with, it was red. And so over the years, I've been a subscriber to Veribank's system and can tell you before the government or the media tells you when the bank is in trouble. So when I listened to talk radio over the years, I did it to get information. Not to be entertained because the guy was funny, because the guy was supposedly brilliant, because I wanted to follow him, but because of the information that I get. And sometimes I still do, although the caliber of what is on the air today, in my opinion, knows nothing. I also receive, ladies and gentlemen, on a daily basis, every day, requests for help. Today, 3 requests. Please call me. Please call me. Please call me. When I retired in the year 2000, which is about 9 years ago, because WWDB changed its format, I retired. And then 6 months later, I was contacted by a radio station in Levittown, Pennsylvania, and I went there for 2 hours a day for about 4.5 years, and then I quit there. Now I went back again for an hour a day, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 2, and don't intend to work any longer than 1 hour a day, and I enjoy it. But it's a different type of programming. It's not controversial, it's informative, it's fun, it's just general BS. Because the listening audience of that radio station is more or less, to use the term, Joe Sixpack. Very parochial listening audience. And so I get these requests constantly for people to help them. from corporate owners, some lawyers, people who are about to lose their job. Now, you must remember that when you have a problem, it requires a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of research, a lot of personal time. It probably took most of you 10 or 15 years or 20 years to get in the trouble that you're in now. And I would venture to say that the people that I've helped over the years have been pretty successful in resolving the problems. But I don't have the time now or the desire. I am not a counselor. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not a priest. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a sociologist. I do have a lot of information and contacts. And at one time, I had a consulting firm, and I charged $100 an hour. The trouble is, when most people are in difficulty, they don't have any money. So, my time right now is spent enjoying life, doing the radio program during the day, doing this program at night. And I wish I could reach out and just take everybody by the hand and resolve their problems. But I don't have the strength to do it. And B, my time is valuable. And I like to be paid for my time. And of the people that I've helped over the years, I would venture to say I received 2 thank you notes from 2 people. Never received a phone call, thanks Irv, straightened it out. Never did a follow-up, let me know how they made out. And so I'm not looking for gratification. I'm not looking for money. But please, if you have a problem that you want resolved, please don't send me your emails with your problems. I probably could solve it. I have one here that would probably take me about 2 days of researching the particular problem, then spending about another 3 or 4 days trying to resolve it, and then another 2 or 3 days doing a follow-up. Well, figuring out at $100 an hour is $800 a day. About 10 days would be about $8,000. That's approximately what my time is worth. And I have no desire or inclination at this point in my life to give up $8,000 worth of my services to solve your problem. I wish I could. I can, but I'm not going to do it. Now, if you need help, do it before you get into trouble, before you sign that contract, before you give your money, not after, and you have screwed up and then want me to bail you out or give you advice. I spent 40 years on radio trying to prevent people such as yourself from getting into the mess that you're into. And people, I guess, just didn't pay attention. And as I said, I listened to talk radio, read the newspapers, watched television, read books to get information so that I could survive the system. Didn't do it because it was entertaining. Didn't do it because I needed company when I was driving my car. Didn't need it because I needed a radio on in the house while I did my chores or outside washing my cars, cutting the grass. Didn't do it I did it because I wanted to learn. And I have to say, those in the radio business, in its infancy of talk radio and interviews, the caliber of men that were on radio years ago was far superior to what's on the air today. The information, far more important. than the information you get today, because all you get is the bloviators who spell out the problems but have no solutions. The old talk show host gave solutions to the problem that existed. And I would say were pretty darn accurate, because they were people who had lived a life of experience, and while they were on the air, also lived a life of experience. So be that as it may, I hope you understand that I'm not being mean, I'm not being vicious, but I have time for my friends and my acquaintances over the years. If they get in a problem, I go out of my way to help solve them. And have been successful, and keep and cherish that relationship that I have with those folks. So I feel for all of you who are losing your homes, who have children in jail, who themselves are in possibility of going to jail or going to trial, or losing your job. But you're going to have to solve it yourself. And so I leave it go at that. I have a trivia question tonight to pose to you. And we do have a chat room that is available for your questions or comments. And we do have a telephone number if you care to call at 215-253-8877. 215-253-8877. In reviewing Friday's program here on the Irv Homer Show, I got too emotionally involved, and I made a promise to myself. No one wants to pay any attention to understanding how to resolve the problem. And so I will be more calm in doing this program, but giving the same information. I meet people on the street, met a couple today, claim they listen to the program on the internet here. What suggestion would you have, Irv, for the president or the Congress? I said, you say you've listened to the program? Oh, yes. Did I tell you that the stimulus package isn't going to create jobs? I think so. Did I tell you the bailout isn't going to work? Yeah. Did I tell you what the problem is? Well, I think the phone rang. Oh, okay. I will be repetitious in my resolve of the problem that exists in this country. Going back to 35, 40 years ago, and I'm not one of these guys that says, I told you so, and I was right then, blah, blah. To be a prophet, all you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is look at the mistakes you make today and realize that you're going to pay for it somewhere down the pike. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. If you're spending more money than you make, you're going to go in debt. And you're not going to get out of it. If you use false currency, you're not going to get out of debt. If you see jobs, companies leaving America, what kind of jobs are you going to create when there is no manufacturing base in the United States? The only solution to this problem of America's economic failure, and today I think, 32,000 people will lose their jobs?
71,400 so far today.
71,400 people
one day
have lost their jobs today.
And I think the last I saw, it's close to 500,000 this year so far.
And it's only a month old this year.
Not even. It's almost 500,000.
Almost 500,000 people. I am waiting for some congressmen, some senators, some talk show hosts to tell the government, the president, we must shut down American industry that's overseas. We must bring back a manufacturing base to America for our consumer goods so that our factories will flourish once again? Everything that we consume, clothing, utility lights, fixtures, automobiles, refrigerators, television sets, computers, everything that we import from all over the seas, made by American companies who have moved overseas, must be brought back to the United States to create jobs here, period.
That also now, wouldn't that also include, because a lot of people always, and I hear this all the time, that they complain about when they call any type of technical support, they're always transferred to Bangladesh or somewhere. So that also, and they're American companies that should keep their technical support staff, have it routed in the U.S.
Well, mainly if the product is made in the United States, it would make sense to call an American who made the product to explain and give the technical support that they need.
Yeah.
So by bringing industry back to America, you would also bring back the technological information that's necessary for those businesses. When you realize that we have shipped our industry all over the world, how are you going to create jobs? Doing what? Working in Pizza Hut? Kentucky Fried Chicken? What? The answer is never going to be resolved with a bailout or a stimulus package if we have no manufacturing here in America. There used to be a sign on the Trenton Bridge as you left Marsville, Pennsylvania. And on that bridge, if you remember, it said, "What Trenton makes," what the heck, what Trenton makes, the world, something that if it's made in Trenton, it's what the heck, I forget what that, but in Marsville Bridge, maybe someone can tell me what it used to say. Well, that was the whole crux of the sign. That if it's made here, it's used here, and jobs are created here. So we can't create jobs in America when American industry is overseas. You can't also have a stable currency when you have counterfeit money. And what we have is counterfeit money. Excuse me. Those two basic things, ladies and gentlemen, are a requisite for a, quote, capitalist society to operate. Let's go to the telephone and see who's on the line. Are you there, sir, ma'am?
Yes, I'm Jim from Hatfield.
Yes, Jim.
The slogan was, "What Trenton makes, the world takes."
That's right. What Trenton makes, the world takes.
Another thing I want to talk to you about, I was getting my W-2s back from my employers that I worked for this year. I noticed that my employers were paying in a lower amount this year, or last year rather, 2008, than they had been paying before, and I found out that's part of the stimulus package. In other words, your stimulus package you got last year was an advance on your refund for the IRS this year.
Right.
So a lot of people were, gee, I didn't know that. I said, yeah, Georgie Boy and the IRS slipped that into the American people. They didn't even know that.
Well, they've played all kind of machinations, Jim, that we'll get into in future programs. But you can't create something from nothing.
True.
The other thing is, never in the history of this country have we ever lowered taxes while engaged in an 8-year war.
True.
Never happened. And so the reduction of George Bush of taxes to stimulate the economy during the war helped create the situation that exists today.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, the other thing is, and I have to beat this thing on the head, Jim, when the casino within walking distance of where I'm broadcasting from takes in $1.3 billion in 3 months. That's what Philadelphia Park took in the slot machines only. 1.3 billion. During World War II, Americans were sold government war bonds.
Mm-hmm.
We financed the World War II ourselves. We didn't go to China. We didn't go to Britain. Britain was under attack. We didn't go to. The American people bought the bonds that paid for the war. Now, if the people of America supported the troops as they say they did with the rallies that we used to have on the street corners, and if everyone supported President Bush and we've got to get those terrorists, you mean to tell me the American people wouldn't be patriotic enough to take that $1.3 billion that they put in the slot machines and buy government war bonds to finance our own war and pay it back to ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
This is the idiocy of the people on radio and television today. It's the idiocy of their ditto heads. It's the idiocy of those people that are in government today, asking the rest of the world to finance our war. And it's logical that the rest of the world loves the fact that we're in Afghanistan and Iraq and possibly in Iran. Because as long as we're borrowing from them to fight a war, why should they want the war to stop?
Exactly.
And it just boggles my mind that I'm the only one that understands it and makes sense with it.
Well,
Jim,
I
can't.
understand it, and I think that, yeah.
I can't figure it out, and so
can't
I
either.
beat my head against the wall, and say, I can't figure. I can't. How do you borrow money and money from all over the world to fight your war? If you're making a mistake, and I'm making money out of your mistake, I don't want you to stop making that mistake. And if you're borrowing money from me, like the Federal Reserve Bank as a private bank that loans us money, why should the Federal Reserve Bank want America out of a war? We're going in debt up to our ear to private investors.
You got it. And what happens when the Federal Reserve pulls the plug and says, no more money, sorry, you ran out? Then it's really going to be a Sunday school picnic out there.
Well, this is eventually what is going to happen, because eventually the Fed is going to say, look, we have no more intrinsic value to loan you any money. And if you do, you're going to be paying 14 or 15%. What kind of interest? And I'm waiting for someone from the Finance Committee and the Congress to ask, what kind of interest are we paying on that borrowed stimulus package?
Plenty.
We're borrowing $865 billion. We've got to be paying interest on something. What is the interest and who gets it? And all they worry about is, well, the entitlements are going to run out and this is going to run out. They never say that we're not going to be able to pay the debt. So, Jim, I thank you so much for listening and thanks for contributing to the program.
Thank you, Irv, and have a great night.
Same to you, sir. Let us go to the website or the chat room. It says, why does Obama and the Dems believe that spending money we don't have is the solution to our problems? Well, let me correct you, my dear friend, because it was the Bush administration that started this fraud of spending money we don't have. It's George Bush's war and the Bush administration's war. And all the Democrats and President Obama is doing is exactly the same thing that George Bush did for 8 years in spending money on a war that we didn't have. And so now the Democrats are saying, and Obama is saying, well, if he did it, why shouldn't we? Boobus America didn't care that the president was running us into debt. $10 million a week to Pakistan? Spent by the Bush administration? For what? So the Democrats with Obama are doing exactly the same thing that the Bush administration started, spending money that we didn't have to solve the terrorist problem and solve the problem of Al-Qaeda and of terrorism. To our next question or comment on the chat room, Irv, I called Comcast the other day to discuss my billing and got some gal in Malaysia that I couldn't even understand. Well, that was what Ron was talking about earlier, Bill. That is a job that an American should be doing, that the government has allowed Comcast to subcontract in Malaysia so that they wouldn't have to pay an American a halfway decent living wage. Now, the only way we're going to create jobs in America is to forbid them. Bring the communication system back to America, the telephone companies, the cell phones, the iPods, the Blackberries, back to America, and then the questions could be answered right here in America. Our next question on the chat room or comment: my mother needs a drug that is made in the United States but costs $200 a month. I can get it for her at $44 a month in Canada. Why in the hell should I buy in this country when I can save $156 a month getting it from across the border? Well, you shouldn't. You should be able to buy it in Canada at $44 a month. The problem is the federal government in the United States prevents bidding by the American drug companies. When you realize that one of the drug companies today offered $69 billion to buy another drug company, and whether it was Merck buying out Pfizer, where did the drug company get $69 billion from? That is more money than most of the countries in the United Nations have as a GDP over the year. The drug companies under the Bush administration have given carte blanche to screw the American people. Canada buys drugs from the American companies wholesale at discount prices. They then resell them, the Canadian government resells them on the open market to drug companies in distributors in Canada, and they distribute it to the United States. But American, with the bloviators, oh, that's socialized medicine. Do you know, my dear friend Alan in Maple Shade, that the Veterans Administration is not allowed to shop for drugs for the VA? They must pay the going market price. So the Veterans Administration is probably paying $200 a month for medicine to the drug companies here in America with our tax dollars that they could probably get for $44 a month in Canada. That is the Bush administration's fiscal policy. It is simple arithmetic and simple calculations, ladies and gentlemen. Very simple. But the word socialism scares the bejabbers out of people because they have no idea what it is. Oh, that's socialism. Well, in my younger days, I was a rampant socialist, and by God, I would venture to say I still am. Doesn't make me anti-American. I think our capitalist system was predicted in books that I told you not to read, called Looking Backward by Edward Bellamy. The Ponzi scheme of America capitalism idea had to fail. And there's nothing this administration is going to do that's going to prevent it from collapsing in total. Socialism has never been used anywhere in the world. Don't believe it. Never been used anywhere in the world. You know why? Because the politicians couldn't steal, and the Bernie Madoffs couldn't steal either. But it is extremely difficult to be a lone voice in the wilderness trying to educate the masses of people who are more concerned about the statistics of the Philadelphia Eagles or the Flyers or the casinos than it is to educate themselves. And I think we see a classic example of it by what we have in Congress, what we have in the Federal Reserve Bank, what we have in foreign policy. I know I make it sound simple, and you know why? Because it is simple. Our telephone line is open, and that number is 215-253-8877. I want to talk about our war on terrorism and Homeland Security. And we have 79,000 people employed today, hired by the Bush administration for Homeland Security, so that we don't have those terrorists attacking the United States. I don't believe it for a minute. I don't believe it for a minute. I'll tell you why. A half an hour from where I'm broadcasting tonight is a little town called Coatesville, Pennsylvania. And if you read the paper, listen to the news, there has been a firebug running around Coatesville setting houses on fire. I don't know the number of homes that have been burnt down, but it is now at crisis proportion. Now, wouldn't you think, ladies and gentlemen, 30 homes have been burnt down in Coatesville, Pennsylvania. The population of Coatesville, I think, is 11,000 people. With 79,000 people fighting terrorism around the world, we can't find out who burnt down 30 homes in Coatesville, Pennsylvania? How do we expect our servicemen and women in Afghanistan, in Iraq, on the Pakistan border to be able to stop international terrorism when 30-minute ride from here they can't find out who set 30 houses on fire? Will someone please answer that for me? Someone please answer that for me. Think about it. We're 8,000 miles away stopping terrorism. We can't stop a firebug 30 miles from here. Will they get him eventually? I don't know. But after 2, 3, 4 fires, you would think undercover agents, FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, local would certainly find out who the hell it is. When we catch them, we should send them to Guantanamo Bay and sweat them out. Maybe waterboard these arsonists. But it certainly doesn't give me a feeling of security if we can't find out who is setting those homes on fire. Make sense, folks? Anybody else talk like that? No, just me. Now we have a bunch of Looney Tunes, and you people are crazy. Some people are crazy. You know what the biggest religious icon is today that is selling in these religious stores? I don't want to pick on religion. Religion is an evil necessity for some people. But I understand if you can't sell your home, you buy a statue of St. Joseph and you bury it upside down in your lawn. And that helps you sell your house. Hello? only reading what is in the paper and what was on the news. Testimony by people who own these religious stores. The St. Joseph statues are selling out. Probably made in China. And you take the St. Joseph statue, they're about that big, they'll be about 4, and you bury it upside down and you stick it in your lawn, right next to the for sale sign. And that's going to help you sell your house. Now, with all due respect, ladies and gentlemen, you're loony. You're not well. And what frightens me more than anything else is that these people vote. Absolutely mind-boggling. Received a phone call yesterday morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, from Israel. A friend of mine in Israel. She is a journalist, a reporter, a columnist, and a broadcaster that I've known for many, 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 many years. Brilliant woman. About 35 years ago, she started an organization called Victims of Arab Terrorism, in which she documents every Israeli that has been killed since the Intifada started by Arab terrorism, missiles, weddings, restaurants, buses. You've seen the stories on television. But what is not reported that Schiffer Hoffman is also doing as victims of Arab terrorists is the number of Israeli Arabs that have been killed by their brother Arabs of Hezbollah and of Fatah and of Hamas. She has posted on her website in Israel the names of the Israeli Arabs that have been killed by their brothers. Brother Arabs, brother Muslims in the Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iran. Never reported. Did you read it anywhere? Do the Arab propagandists, like a woman who writes an article monthly as an op-ed page, a Palestinian supporter, Susan, do you ever put that in your newspaper column of your fellow Arabs, since you are an Arab, you claim to be? That your brothers are killing you indiscriminately? As long as they kill a Jew, it's all right to kill an Arab? The bloviators don't even report it. Never read it in any of the mainline newspapers. So apparently the Arabs don't care, the Arab terrorists don't care if they kill their own. So why don't they report all the facts? Just boggles the mind. The old boogeyman is rising up again, and it is called the Fairness Doctrine. And we did a piece on Friday night of my opinion of the Fairness Doctrine. And for those of you who are supporters of the bloviators, let me repeat that I do not want any of them removed from the air, either on the left or on the right. But I do want fairness in broadcasting. And once again, all day today, apparently Friday, President Obama made a reference to Rush Limbaugh, and that's all that whore needed. Rush Limbaugh being the whore. That the president was trying to shut him up. To the best of the information that I managed to gather, the president said to Republicans in an offbeat conversation that Mr. Limbaugh doesn't know the full details of the stimulus package and not to pay attention to him. Well, that was all the OxyContin kid needed to go berserk. And so the fairness doctrine jumped up again. Why are they so afraid of being fair? Why are they so afraid of being fair? Can someone who is a Limbaugh, Medved, Hannity supporter get on the chat room and tell me what they're afraid of? What are they afraid of? So I pose a trivia question to you, ladies and gentlemen, right now. Who was the first syndicated broadcaster in America that started with 10 stations and went to about 100 throughout the country? Who was the first syndicated broadcaster in America? And what happened to him? I'll identify it as a him. Who was the first? Now, you folks out there are intellectuals. I did that this afternoon. Nobody knew who it was. No, it's not Howard Stern.
Okay.
Was that you or was that a caller?
That was me.
Oh, no.
It was a shot without even searching yet.
Who was the first syndicated broadcaster in American radio?
We have the yes. Paul Harvey.
Not Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey was a commentator, not a syndicated broadcaster. You see, folks, you just don't know. And I say that if you don't know, the bloviators don't know. To give a course in broadcasting, finances, politics, money, the snowball has gotten too big of misinformation, disinformation, and lack of information to stop the demise of the economic system of the world. The stimulus package, the bailouts, the Band-Aid patches, the Obamas are not going to stop this financial wreck that we're heading for. We can't start another war with the United States with another country because we're pooped out to divert our assets and our thought process. What will be the big thing that will gain the attention of America after Sunday's Super Bowl game? The American boobus will sit and scratch his ass and pick his nose because he won't have anything to do after Sunday, because it'll be 3 weeks before the spring training starts, right? So for 3 weeks, America will be in limbo. Not limbo, limbo. What are we going to do on Sunday afternoon after the Super Bowl is over? Maybe you should read a book. Maybe you should get an education. Maybe you should hide under the covers, hoping the big bad bank disappears or the finance company doesn't come after you, your credit card company doesn't send you a bill. What's going to happen to America after the Super Bowl Sunday? Kind of boggles the mind, doesn't it? So here we are, being listened to all over the world, allegedly, from the email I received, and nobody knows who the first syndicated broadcaster was.
Now you're talking radio, correct?
Radio.
Okay.
Oh, it was way before television. Television wasn't even invented. Probably wasn't. Television, believe it or not, was invented in 1927.
Okay.
So who was the first radio syndicator? And what happened to him? And it's amazing that the chief OxyContin windbag is afraid to mention his name and what happened to him in his broadcast career. And so I guess it'll be necessary for Irv Homer to inform you, but not tonight, the history of syndicated radio. We're broadcasting from irvhomer.com. My website is www.irvhomer.com. The email address is evilirv@irvhomer.com. And RGH Computer Services for all your computer problems. And their website is www.rghsystems.net. And you will be able to check out RGH Systems. We have another guest on our trivia question, Walter Winchell. No, Walter was not the first one, but Walter was syndicated. You're getting good. You're getting good. But Walter Winchell is not the first syndicated broadcaster on radio. And for those of you who are ditto heads, who love, oh, Rush, you're so wonderful. Oh, Rush, you're so wonderful. Oh, Michael, you're so wonderful. Oh, Mike Gallagher, you're so wonderful. I go back. Why don't these people run for political office? They're so brilliant. Huh? Why don't these geniuses on radio and television run for political office? Do you realize that if Rush Limbaugh were President of the United States, think about it. If he were the President of the United States, how all our problems would be resolved? How many of you would like to see Rush President of the United States? Get on the chat room, let me know.
And we have two more guesses.
Two more guesses coming up.
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles, no, did not do a syndicated radio broadcast.
Barry Gray.
Barry Gray, no. Barry Gray was not syndicated. Barry Gray broadcast on WOR in New York. Now, this is a man, and I'll say it's a man, who was on over 100 radio stations throughout the country. And what happened to him? Probably was on the air before many of the people listening to this program at the present time was alive. But if you are a radio freakazoid, like I am with talk radio, you would have done your homework and go back and say, when did this whole idea of syndicated radio start? What was its purpose? How did it grow? But like I said in the beginning of the program, why do you listen to talk radio? To be entertained? To inform yourself? To retain something between your ears that may help you in the future? I don't know. To the telephone, good evening, good morning, good afternoon.
Good evening, this is Jim again. I think it was Gabriel Heater.
No, Gabriel Heater was a commentator, not a broadcaster, Jim.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
Okay, who was the first trivia question? Who was the first syndicated broadcaster in America, and what happened to him?
Okay. We have 3 questions.
Three of
Is it
them.
religious?
I'm not going to give any hints.
Okay, well then there are 2 guesses was Bob Grant and Barry Farber.
Oh, Bob Grant and Barry Farber.
Way before them.
Bless them both. They were a hormone running around their mother's ovaries when this guy was on the air.
Now you did give a hint.
Of what?
You said it was before television.
Before television.
So it had to be
Before Barry Graham or Barry
Yeah.
Farber, who I know well, and Bob Grant I know
It
well.
had to be before the 50s.
In fact, I don't know whether I should tell the story of Bob Grant or not. Bob Grant, whose name is Bob is so proud of being Italian, he changed his name. His name is Gigante. It's not Grant. It's amazing how people are proud of their heritage, but when they got on the air, they changed their name so nobody would know he was Italian. See, I'm not supposed to tell you this stuff as a broadcaster. I'm supposed to tell you that Frank Ford's name is really Eddie Feldman. He was named after Frankfurt grocery stores. I'm not supposed to tell you that stuff. I'm sorry, Frank. I'm not supposed to tell you that kind of stuff. Geez, I better watch my ass. His wife is the DA of Philadelphia. Well, that's a long story for another program. So far, even with the computer, we haven't found out who the first syndicated broadcaster was. Incredible.
Okay. First one. Radio.
Oh, this is so much fun.
What?
Oh,
No.
I think there's something in the drinking water in Bucks County. I'm afraid to drink the water here now. For those of you who know where Bucks County is, look at it on the map. They're seeing flying saucers in Bucks County. Now, how many of you people believe in flying saucers? Raise your hands.
Depends how much I drank.
They had a big meeting this past Sunday, I understand, where they were relating the things that they saw or the things they thought they saw. There have been reports of abductions of people being picked up and taken on flying saucers, and when they landed, they had chips in them. All right. I will tell you who the first syndicated broadcaster was.
And this is just by
This
some
is-
of the history that I'm finding.
Right?
Smiley Burnett.
No. The first syndicated broadcaster, ladies and gentlemen, and when I tell you, you're all going to say, oh. I didn't tell my audience on WBCB today, but probably someone will call in tomorrow. I promised them I would get to it tomorrow. The first syndicated broadcaster in America was a Roman Catholic priest, Father Charles E. Coughlin. Coughlin. Father Coughlin was the first syndicated broadcaster in America in the 30s, and he attacked President Roosevelt as Limbaugh is doing to Barack Obama, and I say Limbaugh, I mean the cadre of right-wing broadcasters today on syndicated radio. So it's all inclusive of those who attacked presidents, as they did with Bill Clinton. After Roosevelt, Father Coughlin attacked Harry Truman. He was against the formation of the Federal Reserve System. He was for the gold standard. And he then went after the international banks, referring to them as Jewish-controlled. And more or less dared the government to remove him from the air. He also distributed tapes of his broadcasts through syndication. He marketed his tapes. He marketed a newsletter. And it got to a point where Roosevelt and Truman, before Roosevelt died, had enough of him and had the Vatican pull him from the air. Because the Roman Catholic Church was threatened by Roosevelt and by Truman that they would not grant the continuation of the tax-exempt status of the Roman Catholic Church in America as long as they had this anti-Jewish, anti-bank, anti-Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman priest on the air. And he was removed from the air. Now, I am warning on this program on the 26th of January, Monday night, Rush Limbaugh and the other Limbaugh icons that attacked Barack Obama and his administration, that if this continues, you're going to be removed from the air. It won't be the fairness doctrine. It'll be a threat to the renewing of the license of the radio stations that you're broadcasting on. Now, once again, Boobus America listens to these idiots. And their defense of their position on radio is, well, the New York Times is not fair. The Washington Post isn't fair. Why should we have to worry about being fair on our radio? You idiots who listen to these morons. The New York Times, no newspaper, is licensed by the federal government to do anything, to print their material. Radio and television stations are licensed by the federal government. They must have their license renewed, I think it's every 5 years today. They must publish on their airwaves that their station license is up for renewal. And you, the public, have a right to go into a radio station upon requesting and review their programming if you object to the type of programming that they do. Now, you can't walk in by law into the New York Times and object to their editorial page, or the Philadelphia Inquirer, or the Bucks County Courier-Times, or the Trentonian, or the Intelligencer. But get it through your heads and spread the word that radio and television stations are licensed by the federal government, and those licenses are vulnerable to removal from any broadcaster that violates what the government feels is irresponsible broadcasting. So Limbaugh and the Limbaugh followers, watch your behind. It was done to Father Coughlin. It was done to many other smaller broadcasters throughout the country. And don't think that you're that big, Limbaugh, that you can't be removed from radio. Rush, you were removed from the National Football League for your comments that were made about Donovan McNabb. Do you boobuses forget when he was removed? You think the federal government doesn't have an influence on radio or television? What happened, and I had mentioned it the other night, when Janet Jackson's tit was exposed? The federal government made them put a delay system in so that it would never occur again. Federal government doesn't care what you print in your newspaper. You can use 4-letter words, 10-letter words, any word you want to. They don't do it as a matter of courtesy to their readers. But you will see F blank blank blank, and you can use it, believe it or not. You can use it on radio and television if it is part of a news story. I had mentioned to you that I had a political party from the state of New Jersey on the air, and the name of the political party officially, and you can check it on your website, the political party was entitled the Committee to Eliminate Bureaucratic Bullshit. That was the name of the political party in New Jersey on the ballot. And I was permitted on my program to interview the founder of that political party. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I say this in all honesty. I'm getting tired of the ignorance. I'm getting tired of small audiences. I'm getting tired of stupidity. As I see this snowball of ignorance rolling and rolling and rolling, both on the left side and on the right, I'm getting to a point where I say, I really don't give a rat's ass what happens to this country. I don't. Because if the people themselves are based in ignorance and listen to the crap that is on radio and television today, there is no hope. I will survive. I have survived this, and I will survive this crash. You won't. I will. In closing, I wish you all well. Until Wednesday night, we'll do this again. Look up Father Coughlin.